All right, children, I am now going to explain to you how seasons are caused on the earth. So seasons are caused on the earth due to the revolution of the earth on its tilted axis around the sun in an elliptical path. So the reason once again for seasons on the earth are caused because of the revolution of the earth on its tilted axis around the sun along an elliptical path or elliptical orbit. Okay, so when you are asked why do you get seasons, there are two reasons. One is because the earth is tilted on its axis, and the second reason is because the earth is moving around the sun along an elliptical orbit. These are the 2 points. If you do not mention the 2 points, you will get round unders. You don't want that, right? Okay. Now let us see what is happening. So here it is, the position of the earth. It is tilted. Above the equator is the northern hemisphere. So this is the northern part of the earth. And you see the portion which is below the equator, it is called the southern hemisphere. See, I've shaded it. Now let us say the earth is over here. The sun doesn't move, right? It is the earth that moves. Remember that. Now the sun rays, you see the sun rays are falling straight. They are falling along a straight line on the which hemisphere? Southern hemisphere. Whereas look at the rays. How are the rays falling on the northern hemisphere? The rays are slanted. So when will you get more heat? When the rays fall on you directly or when the rays are slanted like this? When the rays fall on you directly. In summer, if you've noticed, in the middle of the afternoon when you go, the sun is bang on top of your head, and that is the hottest time. Whereas in the evening when the sun is setting, the rays are coming slanted like that. So the rays have to follow a longer path. That means, why? Because this portion is a little bit away. It is the southern hemisphere which is closer to the sun, whilst the northern hemisphere is away. So obviously the southern hemisphere gets more heat, more light. Because it gets more heat, it is summer across the southern hemisphere. Whereas the northern hemisphere being farther away from the sun, it gets only slanted rays of the sun, so it experiences winter, right? So when you in Calcutta are facing summer, the children of Harrington Park Public School in Sydney, Australia, they are facing winter. So Funland Day Boarding School, Calcutta faces summer in the month of May and June, whereas in the same month, the children of Harrington Park Public School of Sydney are wearing their woolens and shivering. And for all you know, it could be snowing. Ha, what fun. Well, now the earth is moving around the sun. The earth is not stationary. If the earth were always to stay over here, what would have happened? You would have always had summer. The southern hemisphere would have always have had summer. And the northern hemisphere would have always had winter. How boring life would be, huh? No seasons, no variations, no changing clothes. All right, but the master of the universe, and the master of the universe has got different names. I prefer to call him nature. Nature has something in store. So what happens is the earth revolves around the sun, changes position, still moving along the tilted axis. So you see the axis is still tilted. So what happens? the southern hemisphere is now closer to the sun, while the northern hemisphere is away from the sun, farther away, right? So here, the entire southern hemisphere is going to experience spring, and the northern hemisphere is away, so it is still going to become cooler and remain cool. So it is going to experience autumn. Okay? Clear about this spring and autumn? See, the southern hemisphere is much more close to the sun compared to the northern hemisphere, right? So the summer hemisphere gets spring, whereas we get autumn. Now the earth is revolving around the sun, changing position and coming over here. Again, in the same way, along the tilted axis. So like this, it is moving and coming here along the tilted axis. Now, which part of the earth is closer to the sun over here? The northern part or the southern part? The northern part. So the sun rays are falling on the northern hemisphere in a straight line, whereas the sun rays have to travel a longer distance now to fall on the southern hemisphere. You see the rays are already slanting. As a result, southern hemisphere is becoming cooler, so it is starting to experience winter. Whereas the northern hemisphere is now getting the sun rays directly on it, it is becoming hotter. And therefore, it is summer in the northern hemisphere. Okay? So therefore, you have got fans whirring on your head in the northern hemisphere, whereas the people in southern hemisphere, they will be all under their blankets. Okay? Clear about this? Now the earth is again revolving on this elliptical path in an inclined axis and coming over here to this position. Now, which portion of the earth, which hemisphere, means half, is closer to the sun? The northern hemisphere. This is closer to the sun. The southern hemisphere is farther away. So therefore, the northern hemisphere, the entire northern hemisphere is going to experience spring, whilst the southern hemisphere will now experience autumn. It's just the opposite of what was happening over here, right? The earth again keeps on moving, revolving around the sun on its tilted axis along this elliptical orbit, goes back to this position where once again you see the southern hemisphere is coming closer to the sun, whilst the northern hemisphere is farther removed. Therefore, it is once again summer in the south, whilst it is winter. So whilst we are all wearing woolens in Funland Day Boarding School in Calcutta, at the same time, the children of Harrington Park Public School, Sydney, are playing on the sea beach. Okay? It is summer over there, lovely summer. Or they might be also going to some hill station to beat the heat. Okay? So this is how seasons take place on the surface of the earth. In your senior classes, you will study more about something called solstice and equinoxes. So that I shall explain in your senior classes. So if you are asked, explain why you get winter in December in Calcutta, whereas Australia, Sydney in Australia will get summer in December. It is because when the northern hemisphere gets its winter, the southern hemisphere gets its summer. So you have to explain this, and you have to explain the drawing with respect to this position. You do not at that time need to draw the entire 4 seasons. You just need to draw the winter and the summer. Okay? So basically what you need to do is you just need to draw this. Let us do it over here. Yes. So the southern hemisphere, you see, is coming closer to the sun, getting the rays directly, having summer, whereas the northern hemisphere, the rays are falling slanted because it is away from the sun and experiences winter. So that is why in December, when Calcutta has got winter, Australia, which is in southern hemisphere, has got summer. When London has got winter, because London is in the northern hemisphere, South America, which is in southern hemisphere, has got summer. Just the opposite happens now when the Earth's position shifts. So this is what happens. This was the position of the Earth over here. This was the position of the Earth over here, right? So the Earth shifted its position and came over here with the northern hemisphere now closer to the sun and the southern hemisphere away from the sun. Therefore, it becomes summer in the north and winter in the south. So if I ask you, why will it be summer in December in Australia, but winter in December in Calcutta, then what will you say? It is this drawing that you will have to show, with the winter in the north and summer in the south. If I ask you, why will it be hot in the month of May in Calcutta, when in Australia, the people will be wearing woolen clothes in the month of May? It is because when we have summer, they have winter in the southern hemisphere. So you are going to explain only with this drawing, not the entire 4 seasons. Have you understood? Only this drawing. So what you are going to do? You're going to draw the Earth. The northern hemisphere should be closer to the sun. So you see the sun rays are falling directly. The southern hemisphere is away from the sun rays are slanting. Therefore, the north gets more heat. It is summer in the north. The southern hemisphere gets lesser heat, so it is winter in the southern hemisphere. And always because the Earth's axis is tilted like this. Got it? Are you clear about these two? Let's have it clearly. So I want you to really practice these 2 diagrams. Okay, children? Hello? Okay? Okay, so I hope you like this and I hope you understood everything. Follow the recording, follow this video, practice the drawing. All the best. Enjoy your, what do you have now? Winter. Winter in the northern hemisphere. Bye-bye.